Hi, Brett Schaefer here with my latest installment of What's Up at the InSource Group, and today we are thrilled to have as our special guest Kirby Chatterley to discuss cybersecurity. Kirby has 15 years of IT experience, and she just received her master's degree in cyber technology. She has experience in both the military and the private sector with retail, financial, and Big Six accounting. And currently, she's responsible for managing vendor security and assessing and mitigating potential threats within that sphere. Kirby, thanks for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, Brett.
Great.
Glad to be here.
Good. Thank you for coming. Cybersecurity, that seems to be the top buzzword within IT for the past several years. What does the term cybersecurity encompass, and what aspects are you focused on?
So the short version of what it encompasses is pretty much everything. Anything from physical security all the way up into your software and anything internet facing. And with nowadays, that's all technology.
Right.
From your car to building security and things like that. The things that I focus on are external vendors. So the security of what our vendors have in relation to how that would be a threat to the company and to reduce the risks associated to those relationships.
Okay, all right. What would be an example of a potentially hazardous vendor relationship?
So that is actually a really tough question.
Okay.
Due to the fact that you don't get to fully assess the full network controls of the vendor that you're having, due to legal formalities and things like that. But you do look at different kind of control metrics, whether they're putting or implementing policies in place and things of that nature. So some of the red flags are penetration tests, findings that can be in there. And overall, I would say maybe the business's relationship with the vendor. If it seems shady or the business doesn't feel comfortable, then they probably shouldn't be working with that vendor.
Okay, all right, very good. What's something that's overlooked by companies when they're thinking of cybersecurity?
Generically, overall within the company or externally?
How about if I say both?
Okay, so internally, that could actually be a big thing as well. I think relationships, and I know that sounds odd to say, but your relationship with your cybersecurity team and your IT department is something that needs to be woven into itself, along with your relationship between your IT, your security, and the business. Without those relationships, it's not going to work, because your cybersecurity team, they're part of the education process. And if your business isn't educated on what needs to be secured and your IT department's not educated, you're not really doing yourself
They definitely have to work together and communicate with one another. There's no question.
Yes.
Yeah.
From an external perspective, that would probably be in relation to how things and networks are being connected, and again, checking on regulatory compliances. If you've got a vendor who is going to handle like PCI stuff, are they compliant in PCI controls? Are they following a framework, whether it be the NIST framework or like the ISO framework? Are they meeting GDPR requirements? Because those you can actually be fined for, even if it's a vendor not doing it. So it's kind of, it's a lot.
Right. So do all companies do penetration testing?
They should.
They should?
Whether or not, I mean, some will claim that they do, and there's some automated tools out there that can help with that. But if you look at it, an actual third party doing your pen test is probably the best thing for you. And to meet some of those regulatory requirements, you kind of need to have that pen test done. So I would say they should. A lot of your smaller companies probably don't, due to the amount of money it can cost. But, you know, over time they should consider at least one almost every other year. And usually the requirements say once a year. But if you don't have the funding for it, at least try to shoot for it every other year.
Okay, all right. What are some things that you could recommend to other companies to maximize their cybersecurity team's effectiveness?
Education.
Education,
Collaboration, training. I would say definitely those. And ensuring that, education. I mean, they need to be educated on how the internal network is working anyways. They need to be educated on what's coming out. They need to see what kind of threats are out there for their industry, maybe even in industries that are similar to theirs. And then just training, knowing how these things interact, how they work, how applications function, how networks are generated and brought up, how how even some of their controls may hinder things as well, because sometimes even what seems secure to us may cause complications and issues for the business. And if it's going to cost money, probably something you need to take into consideration.
Yeah. So cross-training of their security employees, whether it's network admins or DBAs or whatever, what are some other ways that IT departments can step up, their security game?
Get everybody involved.
Get everybody involved. So it kind of really comes back to working together and communication, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I would say it's not just your IT department.
It has to be everybody.
It does need, it's a full force thing. It's everything from how you onboard your employees.
So HR.
Yep, HR, how you take them out of their networks, and then anything from even legal. There's legal requirements involved with cybersecurity and things like that. So it's a full, well-rounded, and your C-suite should be highly involved, in my opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. They should be the one probably instigating it to the beginning.
Yeah.
So what about smaller companies that don't have a large IT department, or, their budget is restricted? What recommendations, could you make to them that they don't have all that money to spend on security?
So I've had this conversation recently with a few friends of mine, and what I encourage them is when they're looking at those outsourced companies to see what they actually are providing. Like, dig deep into what it is. Make sure what you're asking for, what you want, is also put in your contract outlines.
So what's conducive to your business, your industry, and where you're at?
Right, because you have to remind yourself that if you're going to outsource your security team, that outsourcing is probably doing it for multiple people, multiple companies, and they're also not your company. So they're not going to, one, care as much as internal people are going to care. They're not going to know your architecture as much. They're not going to, but they're also going to have access to those information pieces. You're also allowing a third-party vendor that you don't have the security controls over controlling your security.
Okay.
So it's catch-22, but in some companies it's a requirement. So
about all they can do.
Yeah. I do know some people also complain about, hey, they outsource their outsourcing. So get that in
make sure
in the
you know this
contract
up front.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. What are some of the more interesting things happening in the world of cybersecurity right now, or tell us some of the latest trends or news items going on today?
Latest in cybersecurity. So that's interesting, because a lot of it would probably tie into technology itself. I do know the big hip thing right now is probably going to be cloud native, so Docker containers and Kubernetes and stuff like that. And the security around that is very complex and can be very complicated. And learning it requires you to learn those tools. So getting on board with those is like the new hip thing. Learning the cloud is the new hip thing. So I'd say it's probably those things, but then you've got, it depends on the industry too, right? So if you're looking at how vehicles are being managed, you've got AI and their automation going on. And then you've got, I think, the integration of, I think Toyota was going into Alexa, right? Having that in their vehicle, which have in my car, but for other reasons, and things like that. So it's usually industry dependent.
Right.
So,
Okay. All right. As a CIO or an IT decision maker, where do I go to get updated information on security threats or new tools that are available out there?
So there's a lot of locations that you can actually go and look for IT related.
Right.
I look at, it's called like Y-Cumulator, I think is what it's
What
called.
was that called again?
Y-Cumulator.
Okay.
I can never pronounce the last word. But if you Google Hacker News, it should come up.
Okay.
They have some of like the most interesting things out there, and it's not just cybersecurity related, it's actually tech related. Then there's like security, I think it's called News Fusion or Security News.
Okay.
That one's specific to all of that. But as a person who's learning this stuff, be very cautious on what you read, because it will scare you pretty quickly.
Really?
Additionally, I think for like high level guys, I would highly encourage that if a pen test is going on, go and have them like invite yourself or request that the pen testers that you have on board or who came in actually walk you through what happened.
Okay.
Because you may read the report and you'll say, oh, okay, well, we only had like 2 lows and a few medium findings. But when you actually see how it works, those lows and mediums could cause a huge issue in your network. And even though it may get into the deep dive of technical stuff and you may not understand it, you get a full bird's eye view of what's really going on.
Right. So you need to have that technical person right there working, especially the C-level folks, to make sure that they understand what they're really viewing.
Yeah.
Interesting. What are some of the organizations that you're involved with or follow, if you do, on social media to keep up, with the latest news in the cybersecurity world?
So besides the two I mentioned earlier, I do work with or at least I'm connected to the Women of Cyber Jiu-Jitsu and Women of Technology. I get periodic updates, but there's no chapters here in Texas. Hoping to fix that someday.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right.
And then from there, I actually have a lot of cybersecurity followings on LinkedIn at least. There's a security hub, and there's several different organizations that are built out there that you can connect to that can help you. I can't name them all off the top of my head, but you can pretty much Google any kind of security.
Are there a lot of user groups out there that you can attend or
join?
Or join? Okay. Okay.
And so you can find them. Believe me, you can find them.
They're out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do know that in regards to, like I mentioned earlier, for like innovation technologies, like the Cloud Native Foundation has their stuff, but they don't have a lot of the postings of security items unless you find one of the security vendors, and vendors are actually a good place to find white papers and stuff like that out there. So.
Okay, very good. Wow, Kirby, thanks for your time.
You're
You've
welcome.
given us a lot of great information, both for our audience and on behalf of the InSource Group. I appreciate the time you spent here with us this afternoon.
Thank you for the invite.
Great. And remember, if you're a candidate looking for a change or a hiring manager looking to staff a position on your team, reach out to me, and I'll see what I can do to help out. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.